What is your definition for success?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a combination of the moments that you have, like the memories and the moments and who you're sharing it with. I think it's also a combination of, I guess for me, am my words and actions aligned? Like, am I right in integrity with myself? Because it seems like when I'm right in integrity with myself, everything else, I'm happy. When I'm out of integrity at some level,
Yeah.
that's when I notice there's dis-ease or distrust of self, and that throws off that's when I regress. But if I'm like right in here's what I'm going to do and I follow through, or here's who I see myself to be and I follow through, I find I'm at peace. And when I'm at peace, it seems like everything else is at peace.
Did it take like a big moment that kicked you in the shins to recognize that definition of success, or have you always been wired that way?
Yeah, man, I've been through so many traumatic moments and so many different things. So I think it's spending the last number of years just doing lots of deep work, trying to uncover the armor, because especially as men, we're birthed into this world with like heavy plates of armor protecting our hearts. So it's sometimes hard to get out of here, to actually come into here, to feel, and to kind of like sink into the body and realize like what is success. Because in the youth, it was like, what do I need to be adequate? Or what do I need to be loved? Or what do I need to be accepted? And I think that drives a lot of our 20s, 30s, even 40s. Some men, it drives them all the way to the end of life. I've seen a lot of really successful men that end up isolated, alone, tons of wealth, but no community, no family, just kind of like weaponized protection that looks his life as a transaction and as almost as what can I extraction for self.
Yeah.
Versus I think unwiring it all, you start to get to like what's the real meaning for each of us. And I think that's what the definition becomes, is what brings my heart alive. What am I contributing? It moves from the currency of self to service. And I think that's really what is shifted, but not in the sense of abandoning self for service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like not the martyr,
Yeah.
but like, oh, I'm serving my body, I'm serving myself, I'm serving God, I'm serving my community, I'm serving my environments.
So are you pretty spiritual, or are you very like grounded with your perspective on religion and how God plays a role in your life?
It's a good question. I think I'm in rediscovery of that. I'd say I've always had God as the guiding force for all the work that I've done, but I haven't really had like a religious necessarily view. And I'm now deep in like going through the Bible and reading about Jesus and reconnecting, like really resonate with Christ and his energy. But I don't necessarily agree with all the structure or rules around it.
Yeah.
So I'm more like, I just love who he represents and I have my own relationship with him.
Yeah.
And so that inspires me, but I'm in that kind of rediscovery of like, how do I be around God more? And that's even who I'm finding I'm most inspired to be around, is like who's walking that path, who's, which feels like an integrity with, not the right way, because I don't believe there is a right way, but who's filled with life. I guess back to that life force conversation. Yeah. Like when I look at it through, because I have been going to the different churches and like kind of feeling that out. And like when they talk about Holy Spirit, but my definition of that, like who feels full of life and who feels really free and non-judgmental.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're like, that's how I experience Jesus. Yeah. His energy is very much like super compassionate and like super loving and like come with me, but super connected to the integrity, back to the integrity of like our belief system, our value system, how we're walking the earth. And I think that's really what this next season for me is like, okay, what is my, like who am I serving? Who am I worshiping? Am I worshiping money? Am I worshiping women? Because when I'm worshiping that, it tends to hollow me out.
Yeah.
When I worship God, something outside of myself, I find like it gives me a different energy. And it also guides where I go. Because my journey's been a little outside the box. It's been like, oh, go deep trauma work, or go help, suicidal veterans, or go do this work that didn't necessarily pay the bills in this world. But I feel like I was guided there for a reason. So I've had to reframe my past. Because I could look at it two ways. I could say I've had a number of experiences that I've gotten this close and I failed all the way through it to here. Or I could look at it and go, oh, wow, I was following God's word and I made a big difference and saved a lot of lives and did really deep humanitarian work. And I'm grateful that I got guided to that path. And now I'm reliving this new path. So it's like, depending on the meaning I make, one makes me feel proud. The other way makes me feel like empty.
Yeah.
I call it out. So if I'm worshiping money, I'm empty because the scorecard doesn't show me for the value exchange. If I'm looking at I'm worshiping God, I'm like, oh man, I'm super full and super rich. And that was just my path. So I think to answer your question, I think we all have different paths. And I think we're all guided differently. And for me, learning to be total acceptance of my path and not trying to change or ruminate on or future pacing any of those, but fully existing in like, I fully accept my life, fully accept my past traumas, fully accept my childhood, fully accept all the choices I made brought me to here. Yeah. And how do I really live now is I think what's bringing me peace in this moment.
That's beautiful. I think what really resonates with me is when you start to use the word traumas. Like we all have traumas. Some of us way more extreme traumas than others. But the second we start to get into judgment of your trauma is worse than my trauma, we're in a very dangerous game. Mm-hmm. But I really believe like a lot of the traumas that I've experienced have helped shaped me who I am. Mm-hmm. For you, is it the same? And if so, what traumas have shaped you into the man you are today?
Yeah, great question. So trauma, my definition of trauma is it's the body's reaction to either a real or a perceived threat. So the body's reaction to either a real or a perceived threat to our physical or our emotional well-being. So if we think about that, if we go back to childhood, how many things could we have experienced where the body's reaction to that incident, that event, was this is a danger to my physical or my emotional well-being? Like so many different events. So there's no human I've seen yet to date that doesn't have a life filled with trauma. It's just the big T traumas are the ones that are like rape, abuse, like some of the big ones we look at. Yeah. But we all have little T traumas. Yeah. And they really sculpt our souls and craft our characters based on how we evolve through those. Mine was filled with a lot of loss. You know, I mean, I think my biggest combination was my brother coming to ask for help, saying I've gotten hooked on drugs, I have a lot of addiction in my family, and saying I'm shooting heroin, I need to come live with you. I just started a company because I was driven by money and success and working around the clock, and told him no, I can't help you. You got to go find another spot. He goes back to Reno and dies of an overdose 3 days later. I find out about it, do what most men do, like find out, cry for a moment, then put it in a box, go handle the service, lead the ceremony, take care of my parents, come back and start to build the business that I was building. And at that time, this was back in 2007, built it to like 150K months, which I was like, big success finally. And then 2008 hit, everything comes crashing down. And I come home one day to my business partner, who we'd lived together for 2 years building this company. So best friend, business partner, and my girlfriend, who was also living with us, were hooking up behind my back. So business partner runs off with my girlfriend, experience a big betrayal, takes the company and just takes off. And so I experienced loss of business partner, loss of girlfriend, loss of business. And at the point I was just so like hurt that I just said, I'm not going to keep fighting and like be in that space. I'm just going to move forward. And so I went through bankruptcy because I'd funded it all on credit cards and didn't learn the lesson to pay myself back as we grew. I was still paying the business. And so that I think kind of led me into this moment of like, oh man, like I lost everything, all the external areas. And that forced me to go on this whole journey around loss and grief and trauma, which led me into the space. And initially, I did what most, I think, high achievers do, is like, who's the best in the world? I'll find the tools and I'll fix it. So got deep into Tony Robbins' work, into peak performance of like, let me change my emotional state, my body. Yeah. Let me change all the meanings I'm making this to make it mean something different. And how do I perform? How do I get back? Resilience is how quickly can I get up out of a challenge and get back into the world, and which I did very quickly, but I became an emotional empty shell. And it wasn't until I think our purpose is always here. We're just looking for it sometimes in the ways that we're not wanting to look what's actually here, and grief and loss kept showing up. Would make sense with all the loss that I'd experienced, and I had a lot of death earlier on. And so finally I was like, all right, maybe I need to step into this space a little bit more.